Hi. Neither you nor I expected to see each other in this fashion this morning. For me, it was not until late on this Thursday past, and for you at the earliest on Friday. Yet, here we are. And whatever our discomfort may be at this juncture, it's nothing compared to our planned speaker. So our compassion and love should be directed toward his family and him, not either of us. The topic of our time together today is in tune with our theme for the month, compassion. And that means to me attempting to understand what the term may mean and how we differentiate it from the concept of love about which Reverend Ann spoke so eloquently last week. Love is defined as strong affection for another arising out of kinship or personal ties or attraction, desire, affection, tenderness felt for others, affection based on admiration, benevolence, or common interests, to feel great affection for, to hold dear, to cherish. Many people really love their pets. Last week, our choir sang, "Love takes work." And generally, we understand how true that is. Yet, compassion, if we differentiate it from love, probably for most of us takes even more work. Some common synonyms of compassion are pity, commiseration, condolence, and sympathy. For today, it means the act or capacity for sharing the painful feelings of another. Pity implies tender or sometimes slightly contemptuous sorrow for one in misery or distress. While all these words mean the act or capacity for sharing the painful feelings of another, compassion implies pity coupled with an urgent desire to aid or spare. This is a much broader term and concept which often seems missing from our lexicon today. One of my favorite movies, some of you will remember, is Groundhog Day. Most of you probably seen it. If you haven't, the crucial details are Bill Murray is sent by his TV network to town in Pennsylvania to cover whether the groundhog sees his shadow on Groundhog Day. Somehow, he gets caught in a time loop, and he keeps waking up to the same radio station and replays the same day over and over. Initially, he's amazed, then panicked, and finally terrified. And then he decides to make the best of it. And he begins improving himself and then improving the lives of those around him. Since he knows what is going to happen before it happens, he can prevent or mitigate bad things, such as accidents and health problems. And in the end, this decision to improve the community gets him out of the trap. Showing compassion has proven to be the key. Of course, there's more to it. In this case, our hero has found something he didn't know he had as a reporter, and maybe didn't feel he could afford. In broadcast news, another media-based movie tale, the protagonist, Tom, uses his ability to cry on cue to embellish a story. This leads ultimately to destroying a budding romance with a co-author, Anchor. Apparently, Tom has found a way to shield himself from the emotional toll of becoming involved in the stories he reports. He isn't alone in finding a profound need for such protection. Many medical professionals have found they can only survive professionally if they can isolate their compassion from their profession. Mental health providers especially have found this protection important. They're taught to maintain a professional mindset, which avoids over-connecting with their consumers. it could be argued that they can still be compassionate, if not loving. Here, we begin to see in greater relief the hard choices compassion engenders. The Good Samaritan proverb, which Debbie read to us a minute ago, presents us with a significant dilemma. Where does compassion begin or end? The story you heard involves a priest, a Levite, and a Samaritan, and aid for a man apparently made senseless by robbers. It's understood the man is a Jew. For those of us not steeped in the Judaic tradition, the first two potential helpers are a part of the sect of which Jesus and his listeners apparently were also. The Samaritan, however, is not. He was of a different line of Judaism, which disagrees with the main stem and holds the most holy site is not the Temple Mount, but Mount Gerizim. As a result, the Samaritan would likely have been held in some contempt by many of Jesus' listeners. It seems likely he used this hero to draw as starkly as possible the lesson that one who cares for another out of need and compassion is the one who loves his neighbor as himself. The parable leaves us with a major dilemma. Where does compassion end or become overwhelmed by other standards? Apparently, the priest and the Levite found the limit had been exceeded in their eyes, if not for Jesus. Several years ago, a ministerial intern here in our pulpit used the Samaritan proverb as the focal point of the sermon, and it made me realize the importance of understanding the full implications of a message. For if we take the parable seriously and without limit, we can find unlimited demands on our time and resources. Just for starters, what does the parable direct the listener to do with regard to the millions of people who'd like to become residents of this nation? It's easy to say, just let them in, but suppose that meant adding 25 million or more people to our population in a 2-year period. Providing support for them would probably make the recent increase in gas prices pale by comparison. Adding them to Medicaid, not Medicare, rolls alone would cost about $270 billion annually. Debbie and I belong to Rotary. And, pardon me, Rotary has its famous 4 ways test. Is it true? Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? For a long time, I wondered about that last test. Wasn't it enough to ask whether what was proposed was fair? Now, in light of our discussion, it seems the last test asks a different and subtle question. Will the proposed action create serious issues for some people affected? Will our compassion inadvertently generate responses which do not go in the direction we would hope? Most of us probably want to get the beaten man to the hospital. Do we also want to buy him a house? Or give him round-the-clock care permanently? How much further does this direction lead us? Not many of us have been willing to sell everything and give it to the poor. Nor is that reasonable. And no one, for should we all do that, there would be many more poor people to be supported and no one to support them. Hence, compassion, well-intentioned as we hope it to be, presents us with a dilemma. Our UUA purposes and covenant could be more helpful in this regard. They state our purposes as interdependence, pluralism, transformation, generosity, and equity. Interdependence on its face seems most likely to be of help, but it states, we honor the interdependent web of all existence. With reverence for the great web of life and with humility, we acknowledge our place in it. We covenant to protect Earth and all beings from exploitation. We will create and nurture sustainable relationships of care and respect, mutuality and justice. We will work to repair harm and damaged relationships. Only by really stretching the intellectual limits here do we get much direction for what we should do. Next might be generosity. At least it mentions compassion. Well, sort of. It says, we cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, presence, and resources. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. Even here, the language doesn't provide a really good basis for making choices when we're forced to make them. What's a UU to do? Thank you, Paul Fisk. I suggest compassion is an essential part of our makeup as humans. The urge for compassion, charity, and community has been an essential element of our achievement as the dominant species of the planet. Only by this mutual support have we been able to build the social networks which have made us dominant as we are today. Some of you may have heard my previous comment about this topic by a famed anthropologist, Margaret Mead. A student once asked her what the first signs of community were, and she replied, the discovery of a many thousands of year old broken human femur which had healed was the first sign. Without community support, or what I'm calling compassion, the person who suffered this break would not have been able to live long enough to heal. So compassion is necessary, but not sufficient. Our country is suffering through a period where that necessity seems to have been discounted in favor of personal well-being. So for many of our fellow citizens, compassion has become a less welcomed attribute. Perhaps I should say discounted as in, let's discount that proviso. This trend seems likely to be cyclical, and we can hope for an upswing in tendency toward compassion, but it's our responsibility as progressive members of this society to help direct that reversal of fortune. All the more reason to understand the dilemma created in the need for compassion. At nearly every turn, the current administration's policies remind me of the old saw, for every complex problem, there is a solution that is clear, straightforward, and wrong. Bumper stickers are easily understood, and they don't take into account the many factors that are involved in most of our problems today. In our instant access, instant gratification world, we have become all too accustomed to getting answers instantly. Real life isn't like that. Not all, or even most issues people with unfulfilling jobs or no jobs face can be traced to the influx of immigration of people who will work for low wages. Health issues, such as autism, are complex problems, and it isn't likely they'll be solved by simple fixes such as changing diet during pregnancy or drinking raw milk. High costs are not just due to the control of production by the elites, and reducing taxes for wealthy people has many ramifications. The smartphone era is only a few decades old, and our fascination with them is still in its early stages. They have created a sense for all who are enamored with them that response in any area will be quick. We should not be surprised when that fascination leads us to expect immediate solutions to any and every problem. That's especially true for young users who didn't live through the previous eras when transactions happened at the speed of paper being transported from one person to another. It's probably not adequate to explain the penchant for simplistic and mistaken initiatives on this erroneous expectation of many voters, but the two things certainly fit together. The last election turned on the basis of drawing up simplistic issues and expectations for the electorate. The bumper sticker world of today seemed to prohibit careful understanding of complex issues and the answers they require. A much simpler explanation proposing that sinister forces can be unearthed, which are causing the problem, can be fashioned to accommodate an instant gratification mindset, like the unshakable belief in aliens landing in Area 51. The quick response to complex issues must ignore facts and accept a facile answer, however unreasonable. Compassion must not fall into this trap of expecting a simple answer to a complex problem. As Unitarian Universalists, we often pride ourselves on being more thoughtful about issues of morality and public policy than the average bear. Here's where that belief becomes really important. A simple reaction to any complex need is only going to be truly valid if it recognizes fully the balancing other sides of the situation. For me, that means trying to keep in balance the need for compassion and public welfare and the need for our country and the world to advance toward greater commonality of purpose. This means accepting opinions I don't like as legitimate and resisting the urge to act out against things without appreciating what the opiner intended or what my reaction will engender. This does not mean to denigrate the importance of compassion, for as I've said, it is essential to our future as a species. But it's not sufficient alone to create the society our future requires. May it be so.